What's up guys, Truman here, welcome back to another video. So I am stranded in Edmonton at the moment. I basically was out and my car's broken down, so I've got like an hour and a half walk to get home. I honestly don't care because I need the walk and it's nice to get out in nature once in a while. And I'm going to use this opportunity to talk about a topic that has been on my mind for a while, that many people ask me quite a lot about, is why I'm still single. Now, I actually made a video recently about, this is mainly for the whole MGTOW crowd, is that why I'm actually leaving MGTOW and looking at all the reasons why I'm at MGTOW and stuff like that. So I decided to find a nice secluded location in the park, which is really nice, apart from the fact that everywhere seems to be covered in junk, which is a very common thing if you actually ever want to go into London and you find a park. Usually all the nice scenic areas are covered in trash, unless you go to like the big parks or find like another area, but this is just what I can work with because the nice areas are over there where there's yeah, I'm not going to talk about that. But back to the topic. Why the hell am I still single? I've been single for about 6 years, and I have been, I think my first relationship, I call it the first and the last, was with a girl. It did not go very well back in the days when I was in a really bad place. You know, I was in a really bad place. I was a really bad person. And she left me, quite obviously, and I probably had one of the worst experiences of my life. As you all know, heartbreak is not an easy thing to do, especially when you're young and very insecure. That must have been about 8 years ago now, actually. And what basically happened was I was at a crossroads, and the pain felt was so deep that, you know, obviously it cut deep. And it was like, I remember it was probably one of my first ever self-conscious thoughts back then. It was like, why do I feel this pain? You know, why does this hurt so much? Why does this hurt so much? And I remember it was like a fork in the road for me, where it was like, you know, I could either A, get back on the relationship trail and, you know, go off and find another woman, which would be pretty easy for me at the time because I was pretty outgoing. I was like twice the size as I was then. So I could easily get back onto it. Or I could figure out why I feel this pain, why it's so bad, and why the relationship messed up. And quite luckily, I actually picked the one whereby I actually went down the self-introspection route, and I said, look, I'm going to find out why the relationship went so bad. I'm going to find out why this pain is here. And it really sort of kick-started my whole sort of personal development stuff. Hello, squirrel. This sort of personal development stuff, and this sort of like, you know, trying to find out more about myself and how I can become a better person. That is when I discovered MGTOW. Now, I didn't actually realize that I was on the whole MGTOW thing, because let's face it, it's just a categorization. It's just what men do, whereby men who are either screwed over by women or have really bad relationships and are just sick of the whole relationship game. They're sick of women, they're sick of trying to get back onto the game all over again, and so they just shut themselves down and basically say like, look, I'm going to go off my own, I'm going to retreat to my cave, and I'm going to work on myself. Now, I have a lot of things to say about MGTOW. I think there's a lot of toxicity in MGTOW. I think there's a lot of delusion in MGTOW, but I also think that there's a lot of gain in MGTOW. I think going MGTOW was probably one of the best decisions that I actually made at the time, because I was messed up. Like, I was beyond messed up. I had really bad anxiety issues. I'd be really toxic in a relationship, and I really couldn't just sort of connect with people. I was living a mask. I was living, you know, trying to be someone who I wasn't. I was just, you know, trying to match up to this image of what it is to be a kind and nice and caring person, and just trying to be a man. Whereas when I really think about it, because I wasn't actually raised by like, oh my god, there's condoms everywhere. Whatever. I'm gonna start going for a walk. Let's go for a walk. Because I couldn't actually, you know, because I wasn't raised basically by any proper role models. I was an arsehole. So luckily I found the MGTOW path, and I actually started to embark on that, which was the best decision that I made. And I shut myself off from relationships, I shut myself off from everything, and I just went full personal development. Now, I'm not gonna lie when I say that saved my life, because I didn't actually realize just how messed up I was. And because I didn't realize that, if I had got back into relationships, I would have just gone from one toxic relationship to another toxic relationship to another toxic relationship, and I would have attracted more of who I am, because you attract who you are. And if you're an arsehole, you will attract an arsehole. And that's exactly what I did. So there are times when I did get back onto the whole relationship game, but the same thing happened again and again. I'd end up just really disappointed. I'd end up in a really bad relationship, and it would not work out very well. Now, this lasted for a good 2-3 years, and I went through a whole thing of personal development where I discovered about anxiety. I discovered I had undiagnosed autism. I discovered I had depression issues and anxiety issues. And back then I had no real concept of what depression and anxiety were. I sort of just thought, oh, I just feel really bad right now. Well, you know, what am I going to do about it? You know, how am I going to fix this? And I didn't know how. So, you know, shutting myself down, the more and more I realized just how messed up I was, the more and more I was just like, look, I've got to sort myself out before I get into a relationship. Because back then, I think, you know, part of it was just me realizing that I didn't want to inflict the same stuff that I did with my first girlfriend years ago on anyone else. Like, I'm a pretty empathetic person, and I can see when my own negative tendencies actually branch out and actually start to affect other people. So I basically shut myself down and I said, like, look, I'm not going to get back into a relationship until I basically sort myself out. Now, this was great for a period of time. This lasted for a good, like, 4 or 5 years where I was on the whole personal development thing, transformed myself in so many different ways. You know, it wasn't all positive. There was a lot of milling about, going around and around in circles. I got trapped into the wrong things. I started to become a bit of a self-help freak and going to all these spiritual teachers and gurus looking for enlightenment and you know, and stuff like that. And just not really finding, you know, the right path and just clinging to things to try and get me out of this hole, you know. But after a while, it sort of got to a point whereby, you know, you can only be single for so long, and you really do need that sort of intimacy and connection that you get through a relationship. And because I wasn't getting that, I became basically desperate, and it sort of manifested in more toxic ways in my own personal life, whereby I would sort of be really clingy to women if I was to go out, you know, go to a pub or a club. I'd become really clingy, you know, become really needy, and all I think about is women, and all I think about is getting a relationship. And that then sparked something else in me that said, like, look, you know, even if I'm developing myself personally, if I am going to go back into a relationship, am I just going to bring the old baggage back with me? And so I redoubled again back on myself. This is about 4 years after I actually decided to go MGTOW and work on my own issues. I decided that I needed to transform my relationship with women, and I made all the wrong mistakes. I started to go and do sort of personal development and MGTOW for women. I did it because I wanted women. I did it because of women, because I was young, I was horny and stuff like that. And I sort of, you know, I sort of lost myself, and I sort of idolized them to the point where it's just like I cared too much about getting into a relationship. I was like, I need a relationship. And that neediness obviously manifested itself negatively, because if I was ever going to get into, it wasn't really a relationship, it was more like friends with benefits, which I had quite a few of. It was like, it would always spring up this neediness, and it would just repel me, because I would just see how needy and clingy I was, and it would turn me off immediately. So I would shut myself down again, and then just keep on working on myself until about a few years ago, probably about a year or two ago, whereby I was confidently at a point whereby I could basically, you know, get myself back into a relationship and have a good relationship. But the problem was, I was so obsessed with MGTOW, I was so obsessed with shutting myself down, that I actually postponed good relationships that actually came into my life, that I thought to myself, no, I shouldn't do that because I'm not there anymore, I'm not perfect anymore, I haven't got, you know, to where I want anymore, I've still got all these issues now, because I was so obsessed with personal development, I was so obsessed with MGTOW. That, and also I actually got roped into a lot of the negative stuff that happens with MGTOW. I started to become very anti-women. I started to become, you know, with the whole rising of the whole feminist movement, I nearly got sucked into the whole full-blown, you know, anti-women, full MRA, you know, the negative side of MRA, because MRA just have some good stuff. Sort of like, oh yeah, all women are manipulative and they play games with you and it's better to just, you know, stay single. And I remember generally thinking to myself that, you know, it's probably better to just stay single my whole life and just, you know, not go back into those whole relationships. And it really screwed me over. You know, I can honestly say that there are relationships that came into my life that I totally ignored, that I totally, you know, did not look to, because I was so obsessed with just perfectionism, and I was so, you know, consumed in my own bitterness and, you know, selfishness, and just, well, it was almost like all of that neediness that I had sort of turned in on itself, and instead of really realizing that it was just me, I projected it outwards onto women. And I was like, no, it's just that they're the one, the reason why I can't get them because of them is because they're so complicated and they're this and they're that. And this played out for itself for a good year where I was properly telling myself that I was going to be celibate for the rest of my life. I mean, I really thought that was a life. And don't get me wrong, like going MGTOW and being celibate, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. This is not an anti-MGTOW video, let me just say that. But I nearly got sucked into that whole bitter, resentful, you know, I don't want to be with women, I don't want to really love and live and stuff like that. I just want to live in my own man cave for the rest of my life. And that is unfortunately what I see in a lot of MGTOW people. I did make a video about this, is that there's a really bad side of MGTOW whereby it's just literally the opposite of the feminist movement. The negative sides of the feminist movement. Because let's face it, you know, if you look at feminism, in places it's needed, like in Saudi Arabia, where they can't walk outside without an escort, and they've only recently been actually permitted to drive, then you need feminism. But like here in the Western world, it's really hard to point at things and say like, look, we need a full-blown scale movement, and you know, to actually justify all this crap, like we need to put women in positions where they don't want to be. We have to make everything equal and stuff like that, without even taking into consideration the fact that maybe just maybe women don't want to be cleaning sewers. Maybe just maybe women don't want to be climbing skyscrapers and stuff like that. But that's a topic for another day. And I really basically got to a point whereby I just caught myself like, what am I doing? Like, why am I being so anti-women? Why am I being so hard on myself? And about a year ago, I really did realize that like I've been going MGTOW far too far, and I've been being single for far too long. Now, at the time, my anxiety issues and my depression issues were still there. They were nowhere near as they were before, but they were still there. And I realized that, look, let's just get over these last few hurdles. So I've more or less, my anxiety has gone down to about 20% of what it used to be. Well, I'd say more or less 10%. It fluctuates from day to day, depending on how well I'm actually following my diet. The NoFap has helped tremendously in terms of boosting my confidence and stuff, improving my routine, getting out in nature. That's helped amazingly. And now I'm literally at a point where it's like I'm just prodding myself to just get out there, because now I think I'm done. I'm done with being single. Like, I am done. I do not need to be single anymore, basically. Like, I have no more justification for wanting to be single, and I have no more need or desire to be single anymore either. I realized that I've just been caught in this sort of personal, constant self-development, one day when I'm perfect and stuff like that, and one day once I've got through all these issues. But then when I think about it, I mean, holy shit, what issues do I have? Like, I am a superhuman compared to who I used to be. Like, compared to who I used to be, right, I couldn't eat properly, I had all sorts of I had anxiety, insomnia, depression, I was full of insecurities, I couldn't make eye contact, I couldn't talk to women properly, I didn't know how to talk to women. I made all the different mistakes about how, you know, you have to try and, you know, I was talking to them logically, basically, all the time. I was talking to women as if she was a man, which is a big thing that people do, especially if they're, you know, intellectuals or just people with a brain or stuff like that. They tend to get overly analytical about stuff, which is what most men do about stuff. And I was just making all the wrong mistakes. And I realized recently that, like, I don't actually have any more excuse. And my need for, my genuine desire for intimate connection and relationships kind of now takes priority. Like, I'm going to make it a priority now, because I've been just cutting myself off from being in a relationship for far too long. So I've given myself a goal, like end of this month, end of June, I'm gonna start dating again. Like, I'm done with the whole MGTOW thing. I'm done with everything else. You know, I want to get back into that game again and just, you know, cast the net and see what I find, because I've watched far too many potential relationships just disappear, simply because I was still caught in this, oh, you know, need to improve myself, or, you know, she's just gonna play with my head, oh, you know, I'm not ready and stuff like that. And it's just been excuse after excuse after excuse. So if that's the reason why I've still been single, and I regret it. Quite honestly, I regret it. This is why I'm probably going to title this video, why I'm still single and why I regret it. Because MGTOW, it's time to go. Like, it's time to go. It's time to move on. And yeah, so I just wanted to share some thoughts about that. I've got a nice walk ahead of me, and I might get to the next park. I smell weed. Someone's smoking weed. I might get to the next park and make another video, actually, because I've got a long way to go. And yeah, 3 men out. Peace.